All right. Hello, everyone, on this Wednesday, July 29th. This is the 6th episode of the Deep Water MMA Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Northrup. And if you guys haven't noticed yet, we haven't been on very long, but Lucas Grandsire is not here. And no, it's not a blackout or any internet connection problems. Lucas is actually moving back to the States, which I think he actually mentioned on the show 2 weeks ago. But he's coming from France back to North Carolina. So he's got some stuff he's taking care of. So I'm running partially solo today. We do have a guest, though, and that's MyMMANews own John Eric Poli. It's the first time in our show's short history that we've had someone from MyMMANews on besides me and Lucas. So welcome, John.
Connor, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. And I have pretty big shoes here to fill with Lucas not being here, and I hope I can live up to that because you guys do great work, and I'm such a fan of you and Lucas and plenty of the other guys at MyMMANews too, because we have a lot of great people there. Adam, Mike Peddleton. To sit there and try to list everybody, I know I'm going to forget somebody, so I'm just going to stop naming names there because there's so many people. But I'm really honored that you asked me to be here today, and thank you so much for letting me come on and do this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you have me and Lucas both be on the background. You got your own little sign on the TV, so that's one step up.
I hope that it looks all right there. It looks like from my angle here, that might be a little bit blurred out. But yeah, it kind of goes similar like what's on my microphone here. I wanted just something that would, stand out and be a little bit different because I like being flashy, as you can tell from the suits and everything else. So
yeah.
I think it fits. Nice little home studio I got going on here.
Yeah. You're looking quite dapper. I feel like I'm underdressed.
Yeah, that's I come from a TV background, so I always feel like I have to. A collared shirt's the bare minimum whenever I do anything, and I'm so used to going out and doing things and having to be dressed up nice. So I for an MMA site, definitely overdressed, but from what I'm used to, this is normal.
Yeah. When you go to events too, say a Bellator or even local shows, do you always wear the suit to those?
Yeah, so if it's a fight night, 100%, I will always have a suit on during fight night. It doesn't matter if that's a regional show or if that's I've covered a few UFC events up to the biggest stage. I always have a suit on no matter what. Now, I've only, as far as media days, I did go to one media day one time, actually in Las Vegas for International Fight Week when I believe it was,
okay.
I want to say it was UFC 239 off the top of my head. It was the big card with Masvidal knocking out Askren, Nunes and Holm. The headliner was John Jones and Thiago Santos. And it's happened to work out. I was going to Vegas for vacation with my family, and I asked the news station. I was like, "Hey, you guys mind? I'm going on vacation. Do you care if I take a camera out with me if I apply for credentials and get them?" Sure enough, applied and got them. So I went to media day for that, and being in Vegas, in July, it's very hot. So for that one, I wore just a polo to media day.
Yeah, no Notre Dame shorts.
No, not for that one. Actually, usually too, if I have a polo on for an event like that, I usually will have long pants on. Especially it says in the media policy not to have shorts. But right now, here I'll show everybody. Syracuse basketball represent.
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna say. Besides the thing we have in common, both write for MyMMANews. We both have we both like Jerry McNamara. I grew up a Syracuse basketball fan. My dad's from upstate New York, so that's why. We always like Syracuse in that 2003 championship with Mello and all those guys.
Yeah, so McNamara actually is from Scranton, which is I live in Pittston, Pennsylvania, which I always tell people Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, it's dead center of obviously between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. And McNamara was from Scranton. So that was the big thing in our area. When McNamara played for Scranton, there's bus trips to every single home game from the Scranton area, and
wow.
Since McNamara's left, when he was there, I don't think I missed watching a Syracuse basketball game ever. Now I know he's still there as an assistant coach, so I'm hoping that when Boeheim gives it up, McNamara gets the job. So I can get that. Not that I lack the Syracuse pride. Not during March Madness, I always hop on the Syracuse bandwagon, but I miss watching Syracuse as much as I did, and I'd like to get to the Carrier Dome again one of these times. Have you ever been to the Carrier Dome?
No, I haven't. I've seen it, and I've been to Syracuse stuff, but we never went for a game yet.
Oh,
so we've seen them away a bunch of times. We've seen them in different places, around here. They had a tournament down Atlantic City one time. We went to that. So I've seen them play in MSG a few times.
Oh, I want to go to MSG so bad. That's on my bucket list to cover an event there.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that I went to Temple, I kind of lost my passion for Syracuse too because I started covering Temple. But my dad still roots for them. I think he roots for them over Temple sometimes, but But I get it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we could talk college basketball all day, but there's a lot of stuff to get to as far as the MMA world. The first Fight Island series kind of came and went. Like, I mean, when you saw the first announcement of those 4 fights, I was just like, I can't believe it's over already. And then Bellator came back too this past Friday. Another UFC event this Saturday. Invicta, I think, is Thursday. LFA, the last of 4 cards, is on Friday. So no shortage of MMA in this pandemic.
Yeah, you know how awesome this is that MMA is like the sport to go to right now, because obviously see right now with baseball coming back, they're having their problems with Marlin players testing positive, and the Yankees-Phillies games are being postponed and everything else. Now football, the players want to come back. The NFL hasn't made a call yet. College football is all up in the air. And it's so great to see that it's our sport that's like, hey, everybody, look who's back, look who's running. We don't have any major problems. I know there's been some fighters obviously that tested positive, but I think the great thing too is about our sport that we cover is it's a one-on-one type of match. You don't have to worry about putting 9 guys on the field or something like along those lines. Hey, short notice fights happen all the time. Somebody gets hurt during fight week, or somebody, I don't know, blows a knee out 1 month before. We see short notice fights. So it's just the way kind of how the sport goes. And not saying that we want to see fighters test positive for COVID and have to miss. We don't want to see that either. But obviously, I think that, it's a great thing seeing that our sport's back. And I think if any sport could make it work, obviously it is the sport of mixed martial arts. And I'm glad to see it, not only just the UFC back, but now seeing the wrestling back as well. A lot of fun months coming up for us.
Yeah.
Busy months, too.
For sure. And it was funny, too, because we had Michael Stets on, I think it was our 3rd week, and he talked about it, too, how, like, MMA was almost, like, built for a scenario like this, like, how much it is easier for them to do the test and do that because it is so, like, individualized compared to some of those bigger sports, too. And, like, we were talking a lot about with Dan's stuff last week, too, is, like, as far as Bellator, like, we almost expected Bellator to come back a little earlier because, like, I feel like the UFC did a great job as far as, like, just jumping on this opportunity. Like, let's be, like, the only show in town, this kind of thing where, like, I thought that would be a great chance for Bellator to kind of get that brand out. Because, like, if anybody's watching MMA for the first time, they're most likely not watching Bellator. They're watching, like, a UFC event. So I thought, like, Bellator, that would have been a perfect time for them to kind of maybe get that out there, like, get their brand out there and show, like, maybe some of those casuals, there's a little more to offer than just, UFC.
Yeah, no, I agree on that one. But I think, obviously, in points of leadership, too, I think it was a little bit different because I know Dana White I was not one of these people. I was happy that Dana White was like, I don't care that coronavirus is going on. I get it. It's a serious thing, but we can put these fights on. Like when he tried going to that area in California, that they ended up things getting shut down. Disney didn't want it. Obviously, Disney, owns ESPN and everything. Yeah. But, Dana White did get a lot of backlash from that. And Scott Coker, of course, took a different approach. He went with, hey, everything else is being shut down. We're not going to do it for a while. So I think that kind of had something to do with it. But I mean, I'm with you, too. I thought that was a big time that Bellator could have, came back and got things going. But to Bellator's credit, now that they are back up and running, they seem like they have their head on their shoulders pretty well there. They came back. That Bellator 242, the first event back, was fantastic. And now coming up is that next weekend, I believe, Friday the 7th. Yeah. Another great card with Chandler and Benson Henderson. Another great card coming up there. So it seems like they got their ducks in a row now. We're going to see a lot of great cards coming out of them as well. So and that's nice to see them back. But it would have been nice if we could have got them back a couple weeks earlier. But hey, you know what? They're back. That's the main thing, though.
Yeah. I also feel like that August 7th card is a little stronger as far as like on paper. Like we were talking about this again last week too. And just how, like, we thought maybe, like, if you were going to come back, just have, like, a bigger card. Because, like, I like that Sergio Pettis and Medeiros, like, headliner. Like, that was cool. But it's like, I don't know. I just thought, like, there was no title fights. I just thought they would come back maybe, like, with a little more – I get, like, really put, like, a stamp on it. And, like, and again, like, I agree with, like, what you said as far as after the fact. Like, it was a great card. But just on paper, I thought it could have been, like, a little stronger going into Friday.
Yeah, you know what? I'm on board with that too. I'm surprised they didn't come back with a title fight. Especially I'm not sure what Ryan Bader's story is. We have a two-time, two champ there, and especially if you want to come back, I know because when they did come back, it was you could say a little bit on short notice. They only had about 4 or 5 weeks. Like hey, we're coming back, everybody. Here's our show. We're booking fights. But usually a lot of times when you do something like that, a heavyweight's the perfect person. They don't have to cut any weight. So again, I don't know what the stipulations are there. That could have possibly been an option. I believe what was the last card right before COVID hit? They were going to have wasn't Patricio Pitbull supposed to fight on that?
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on there, but I thought they probably should have went with one of those two directions. But hey, it is what it is, and again, I'm just glad that they're back. Championship fight definitely would have been nice, but again, at least they're back. We'll get there. We're gonna get there with Bellator.
Yeah, we
We're
will.
gonna have some championship fights soon.
Yeah. Like I thought
Grand Prix. They have the Grand
true.
Prix going on too. They could have went in that direction as too, but instead they went with the title elimination fight. And hey, you know what? I think it worked out well for them. So tough button to call there, but anyway, like I said, just glad that they're back.
Yeah. Like that's a good point too, because I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I thought that Pitbull fight like maybe would have came like for something like this too, because I remember I think it was one of the early interviews when this was kind of all happening, and Coker kind of said he's like, our plan is to just take the fights that like we're going to have and kind of just like rebook them. But I mean, obviously, like different fighters have different situations, so I'm sure that was probably a little easier said than done. But one thing I wanted to talk to you on was I saw you were doing like a lot of Bellator coverage. As far as leading up to the fights and post-fight too, a lot of virtual stuff. So just like what was that like too, and kind of tell me about that experience.
Yeah, well, first off, Bellator, they are absolutely rock stars. I had nothing but positive things to say about them as a organization. The way they treat the media, I think is fantastic. Not saying that other organizations don't, but I really like the way that Bellator goes about doing their business. So yeah, what Bellator did was they gave us, the opportunity to take part in that virtual media day, and it was awesome. It was a little bit different doing things through Zoom, and it's funny because I didn't know like what to expect. Like, are we going to be getting one-on-one interviews with these people via Zoom? I had no idea what to expect going in there. So my Twitter account and Instagram, I posted a photo of me like in a suit. Getting ready because I was thinking, we're going to be doing one-on-one face-to-face interviews, but no, it wasn't that way. You kind of just had like a big group thing. You got to raise your hand and ask a question, and I mean, it went over really smooth. Again, like I said, Bellator, they definitely had since they've come back, they've had all their ducks in a row. And again, so much fun. All the fighters, great people. It was great seeing their their responses of getting back into things and following the fight too. Just seeing everybody's pure emotion that they're back and hearing everybody say that they want to get back in there and do it again quick after they missed this, past couple months. So again, Bellator's headed in the right direction. That was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to their event coming up in a couple weeks. I'm hoping to be able to do all that all over again.
Yeah. Was the post-fight press conference, was that similar to the pre-fight? Like, was it the same thing? Like, everyone was kind of like in like a group chat and then you just like raise your hand?
Yeah, that was exactly how it went down. So what happened was you had your Zoom link pulled up, and as soon as the fight was over, you got the notification like, hey, Aaron Pico will be available in a few minutes. You got to raise your hand. Pico made his way to the back room area there with the Bellator stuff behind him in the background, and yeah, they popped on air and they'd be like, hey, Connor Northrup, you're up. Your turn to ask the question. And then after a while, they would mute you. As you could tell, I like to talk, so I got muted a few times for asking too many questions. But, hey, when the mic's yours, sometimes you just want to keep asking. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it's better to have, I guess, too many questions than not enough.
Exactly. Well, a couple of times, too, was I'm sure you've been, I'm assuming, to some Bellator events and to probably some other events.
Yeah.
A lot of times how these things go down, somebody from, I don't know, maybe the bigger side, like an MMA junkie or a ESPN. A lot of times, like those people take over. They get the microphone first, and they get to ask the first questions. With this, you raise your hand. It was first come, first serve. Well, two of the fighters, I get to ask the first question, which was a first for me leading off the press conference. I was like, I'm just going to go with this until they, tell me I can't ask anymore. So,
yeah, that's funny.
But I don't know if you saw too my post-fight interview with Jason Jackson after his win. That was like it's like such like an awkward spot for me. I never had this as a reporter, but I asked him, I was like, "Oh, what was your what do you think of your performance?" And he was like,
I did see that.
Yeah, and he was like, "You saw it, I did it." And I was like, "Well, looks good to me." I mean, you were just in there.
Well, I saw the thing too. He was like, "Are you talking about my fight?"
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of maybe butchered asking that question a little bit because I was a bit nervous being the first person up there because I wasn't expecting that to happen with him. But I asked him, like, how do you evaluate the performance and the breakdown of what just happened of my fight? Yeah, no, the next one. Like, yeah, of course you're fine. It was a lot of fun though.
Yeah. And just like as far as going that too, I mean, who would you say was like maybe that biggest winner from Friday night?
Ooh, JJ Wilson, I was very impressed with. I know obviously he came with a strong grappling background, undefeated, young kid. I believe he's 20, 21 in that area there.
22, yeah.
22, yeah. Well, young kid compared to
Yeah.
Taiwan Claxton, who's, I believe, about 27, 28. And Claxton obviously had all the hype coming into it with that crazy knockout that they call him there, Claxton out of. And then I actually thought when me and Matthew Putterman for My MMA News, we did a breakdown of it. And I thought that Claxton would have more ways to win. I thought he'd be the more polished fighter in the stand-up. And I thought his wrestling background would be too much. I know obviously JJ would have the jiu-jitsu to kind of, the clash of styles there. But I thought that I thought for sure Claxton, I thought was going to be a win for him. And I thought JJ really looked great in his performance. And outside of that, of course, you got to give the tip of the hat to Sergio Pettis as well, because Pettis, with that win, secured they said he's going to fight for the Bellator title fight in his next, whenever his next outing is. So obviously, whenever you win a title elimination fight, that's kind of a big deal. So, those two guys I thought were the two big winners of the night, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually talked to JJ before the fight, and I think I was one of the few people. I don't have any proof because I don't think I wrote it anywhere, so you can call me a liar. But I actually had JJ winning that fight. I thought it was going to be a submission, just because I knew that was Claxton's only loss, and I thought maybe he might overlook a guy like JJ too, because I know a lot of people were like, well, who has Wilson fought too? I thought that was a big part of it. But the only reason I was kind of leaning maybe away from that is just because it was a little bit controversial. I think a lot of people had Claxton winning that fight. I actually thought, and I'd like to get your take on this too. Did you think JJ won that fight afterwards? So I wasn't. What's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't have been surprised either way, but I was a little more surprised that JJ got the nod there.
Yeah, well, first off, Connor, I'm going to go back to the beginning where you said, "Call me a liar," and write it down. You're a liar. So, no, I completely joking. Yeah, no, I actually I scored it 2-1 for Claxton. I thought I had it going 1-1 into that third and final round, and I thought that Claxton did the majority of the work in that last round. Now I know when he kind of went that, they had that takedown attempt, and then JJ kind of was going for the triangle there, and that was close. And don't get me wrong, that was a huge moment in that round, but I still thought, looking at it on a 5-round must system, I thought that Claxton actually did a little bit more. But it wasn't not I'm not calling robbery here that Claxton lost. It was a very, very good fight, and it's one of those ones. Maybe we'll see that one, see those two run it back somewhere down the line, because or those two guys, as well as Aaron Pico too, we got to look at a lot of great future stars there, and not only the Bellator promotion, but possibly in the whole sport of mixed martial arts. Who knows where their careers would take them? But there are a lot of young talent over there in Bellator. That's exciting to see those guys come up through the ranks.
Yeah. For me, the biggest winner I thought was Jason Jackson. Just the fact that I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to go in there and compete the way he did. Jordan Maine, he's a guy that came up from UFC, but it wasn't like this guy wasn't doing well in the UFC. He was coming off 2 wins inside the octagon. I thought he kind of had almost because when you look at these fights, you can almost see where different promotions will go with these guys. They're setting them up, and I thought this was a perfect thing for Jordan Maine to come in here, beat a decent guy like Jason Jackson, who's good. He's Ultimate Fighter. People know him from Contender Series, so it would have been easily for Bellator to sell Jordan Maine after this. And when I talked to Jackson before the fight, that's a lot of what he talked about. He's like, I feel like I'm being disrespected. He's like, Bellator's not giving me the respect that they're giving a Jordan Maine. He's like, I feel like he's the favorite and everyone's treating him as such. So I think he kind of almost maybe took that to heart and showed us too. And I that was another thing too. I was like, if Jason, I didn't think he'd win that fight, but I was like, if he does, I didn't think it was going to be the way he did. I thought he was pretty dominant.
Yeah, so the one interesting thing though with that fight, that I actually, when me and Matthew Putterman did our breakdown of it, I actually agree. Matthew, he went first, and he actually picked Jackson to win by unanimous decision, and I wrote his coattails on that. And the only reason why I did that, the main fact of if you look at several Bellator fighters, to think of off the top of my head is kind of hard, but if you want to go back. I'm sure you can find several examples. A lot of times when the people from the UFC come over to Bellator, that first fight inside of the Bellator cage doesn't really go as planned. Gregor Masasi, one just popped in my head. I know his first fight in Bellator was, nothing but pretty for as dominant as, he went on to be and be a champion there. I know just working to get back his title that he just recently lost. But yeah, a lot of times there are fights inside the Bellator cage the first time don't go down as well. And not to mention that Mian also was coming off, was it a 2-year layoff after having 2 different knee surgeries? So there was a lot of question marks with that one, which is why I, went and leaned towards Jackson in that one, because I mean, 2 years out of any type of fighting is a long time. And with the exception of Dominic Cruz, who says ring rust doesn't exist, most fighters will tell you that yes, it does. So that's the reason why I actually thought Jackson would have done it. But he did feel disrespected. As you said, you could just tell when we spoke to him at media day, there was like the passion and the you know what I mean, behind his voice there. He was really, you could tell, pissed in a way, and he wanted to go out there and make a statement, and he did it. So kudos to him, and maybe we'll see him and Ed Ruth run that one back, because that was obviously a close fight between those two guys.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the reasons why we do this show is just because we want to talk to, like, not just about MMA, but MMA media. And, like, we feel like that's something that maybe, like, a lot of people don't talk about all the time. And with you, too, like, when you watch your interviews, I feel like, and, I mean, like, you sound like a news anchor. Like, even, like, just now, like, you're holding the mic. Like, you look like a news anchor. Like, so just tell us a little about, like, your media background.
Yeah, so funny here. I always wanted to do it since I was, I don't know, I want to say somewhere around like 4th grade, I want to say. Now, somewhere in that time frame, too, I was also diagnosed with being dyslexic. So that's always, it's hard to see somebody a lot of times go from being this dyslexic kid that can't really, like, read or write as a young kid that's having a problem that, goes into that type of field. But I always loved sports, and I always wanted to be involved doing sports. So I started at a young age reading the newspaper. My routine was every day I'd wake up before school, read the newspaper. I remember as a little kid, before doing the morning announcements, my grandfather would help me write my script for the morning announcements in school for the day. So, it started off at a young age there, and went to college for it at Lock Haven University, proud graduate from there, and kind of went back and forth when I was there. I started off wanting to do TV. Then I had a professor who was a huge influence on me, Tom Wheatley. He's in the St. Louis Blues Hall of Fame, actually, as a media member. He's one of their first ever beat reporters out in St. Louis. And he kind of, from having him as a professor, I wanted to go to the journalism background. So then I kind of started doing print. And then my senior year, I job shadowed with one of the local stations here with Charlotte McBride, who's a fantastic reporter. She's now in Washington, D.C. doing sports there. And when I job shadowed her, I'm like, I want to do TV. So I graduated then from Lock Haven. I got a job in my hometown area of Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, with the independent station with WYLN is the station there. And I briefly worked there as a part-time sports reporter and anchor. And then unfortunately, there were layoffs there from a financial standpoint. Being that I was part-time, I was laid off. And then SSP TV, the spot that I'm now, right now, I'm currently laid off due to the COVID pandemic, which a lot of people are too. But I interned with them actually right when I finished college. I was having a rough time getting a job at first, so I interned there, so I knew them very well. When I got laid off, they just happened to have an opening. They brought me on board, and yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And they're part of the reason why I am, the way how I am now. I learned from a lot of great people at SSP TV, the Lassant family. Fantastic people, nothing but class acts, professionals there. And my sports director, Ken Kerr, my news director, Lisa Sugart, along with one of the guys in production, Tim Novotny, have been huge influences on me. I've learned from, those guys are very old school in their approach, and I've learned from true professionals, and I'm glad that I've got to have that experience with them.
Yeah. Why MMA? Like, what kind of made you go that path?
Yeah, so that's another good story, too. I was a huge boxing fan growing up, and that's because of my dad. Like, I know for most people, they're like, they want violence around their kids. But for me, a Saturday night, if there was boxing on Home Box, we used to watch it. We're going back to the days of the Ricky Hattons, Joe Calzaghe, Winky Wright, Arturo Gotti, going back into that era there. So, I always had a bit of a combat liking. And then, I turned 21, and before going into when I turned 21, when the UFC was first starting to kind of make their move and pretty much getting more popular in the sport of boxing, I was trying to be loyal to boxing. Well, I turned 21, and, Connor, as you would know, as somebody that's of the age to drink alcohol, when you first turn 21, you want to go to any bar, you want to drink anything and figure out what you like, what you don't, and it's the time to be young and make mistakes. And I made a good one night because my dad told me he was going down to the bar to watch the UFC fights, and I should give it a try, that I would probably like it because I did like boxing. And sure enough, I loved it. It was, I believe it was when Cormier actually won the vacant title over Rumble Johnson. It was the first card I ever watched. And yeah, I loved it ever since. I can't tell you the last time that I missed a UFC pay-per-view.
Now, like when you were doing that too, like did you go back and watch like a lot of like the old fights and things like that?
Some of them, not all of them. There's sometimes where I feel like a little bit dated, like when people get into the Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. Obviously, I'm familiar with those guys. They're legends of the sports. I know that obviously they're former champions and whatnot, but that whole era, unfortunately, I've did not get to see and miss. And I do kick myself that I didn't get to witness it, but maybe there will be a time that I'll go back and run through all of those old ones. But I pretty much kind of been a new guy and kind of just ran with the whole new stuff. Now there have been times like if I look at somebody's fight, I'm like, oh, I know when did they fight? And if it's an older UFC fight, and I know that they have a fight coming up, if I want to do some prep work or whatnot, I'll go back and like run that one back. But the legendary era, not too much.
Yeah, I call it like the very tail end of that like era. Like Chuck Liddell was kind of like on his way out. Like I remember like Rich Franklin, Randy Couture, like all those guys were like, and they were on the decline. The safest way to say it. But then like for you too, I mean, obviously like you come from like almost like a news anchor background. Like you always want to do sports. Like what are you kind of like hoping to do? Like is MMA like that route that like you're kind of chasing after, or are you interested in other things too, like a basketball, football, that kind of stuff?
No, man, it's all MMA. To be honest with you, this COVID thing kind of has things obviously screwed up at the moment. But I've been looking into possibilities now that I'm laid off. Like I've been looking at Las Vegas news markets just to be out there in Vegas where the fights are happening all the time, to be centered around things. But this is what I want. I want to be surrounded by this sport as much as I possibly can, and hopefully Connor will be in a good spot here where. The sport's probably the biggest it's ever been, but hopefully it becomes a mainstream sport within the next 5-10 years. And then we'll be, right now there's not a lot of guys in our shoes that are full-time covering it, but maybe there'll be that opening force because the sport will be so mainstream one day. So, we'll just have to, good luck, obviously, your career too, whether we have to keep plugging away and hopefully we'll be co-workers one day with somebody big time.
Yeah, like I was thinking like yesterday too. I almost consider like you and Adam and like Eric, like I feel like we're like the night shift, like as far as like fight coverage goes, because it's always like the same group. Bob too. Bob will step in. He covers like some of the local guys too. But I was like, I always like call us like the night crew. I feel like.
Yeah, man, we've been busy the last couple months. We've really been hammering away and knocking out the park, and I hope people have been noticing. From what my understanding is that MyMMANews is on the rise. But Eric had the post up, but we're a top 10, considered a top 10 MMA organization now, and we're killing it with the interviews. We're killing it with the fight night coverage, and hopefully it just continues to keep getting better and better because I think we have a great staff here, and I really enjoy working with all of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't talk too much about as far as the fight night coverage because I think I missed maybe the last 3. So it was
we got Saturdays.
There was that one Wednesday one that was like I was able to do that one, the Cater Dan Ige fight, but I'll be back this weekend. But like another thing I want to talk to you about is just as far as like the fights in general too. Like I mean, like I kind of said at the top of the show, I'm almost like shocked that Fight Island kind of came and went as fast as it did. Obviously, it will be back. But just that first series, it was something that we like were talking about for so long, and I felt like it just like went by so quick.
Yeah, I hope this is something that never goes away. Obviously, at some point in our lifetime, COVID's not going to be a concern. We'll go back to having arenas and everything. But like, I almost want to say, imagine like the Pro Bowl, for example, in football. When that goes to Hawaii, like that's a big opportunity for the players to take their families on vacation, kind of make a trip of it. Now, obviously, they'll be going there to fight. It'll be serious business, but you can just tell like. That was absolutely beautiful out on that island, the nice water park close by, beautiful area. That would, it'd be nice to see them keep this around for a long time. If they have to, even if they have to find a way to get some fans in it, I don't know how they would go about doing that. But like, just for the fact that like, let the fighters go out there and fight, and then win or lose, they get to have a nice little vacation afterwards with their family. I would love to see that stick around because that's a great area out there. Yeah,
for sure. A little hot, but besides that,
oh yeah, no.
Yeah. But, one of the biggest takeaways, too, and unfortunately, there was a lot of good things that I felt like happened on that 15-fight card, which I also thought that went, like, kind of fast compared, like,
it did.
Considering it was 15 fights. But a big talking point from that was everyone's talking about Dan Hardy. They're talking about his criticism of Herb Dean from the Francisco Trinaldo stoppage over Jai Herbert. It was I think it was third round TKO, but I mean, really probably should have been a knockout. But what's your take on that? Did Dan Hardy go too far with his criticism? Because he said what he wanted to say on the broadcast, but But then, the video and pictures kind of surfaced of him kind of yelling at Herb Dean. I know they kind of shared a few words afterwards. But did you think he went too far with his criticism?
Yeah, so obviously this is a unique take here too, because we're obviously in a spot as journalists where people look up to us and look up to our opinions and everything, which I appreciate. But truth of the matter is, I never fought in the UFC. I know you have a bit of a jiu-jitsu background, but obviously, same thing. We're not the ones that have ever been out there doing it. So for somebody like Dan Hardy, who has fought, who has been in there, who knows the repercussions of maybe being hit late, being knocked out, the feelings that that a fighter would have when they're inside there. I think coming from him, he has a justified spot on it. A little surprised that he did it the way how he did. That's kind of ways to do everything. I know Dan Hardy obviously is very big in the media world of things. I'm surprised he didn't go out on like a podcast or something along those lines to kind of do his point there. Doing it right there inside of the octagon was a little crazy. But he was looking out for the fighter's safety. And again, obviously there's two sides to every story. Herb Dean thinks that he was doing the right thing, but again, if Dan Hardy's the person that's justified to go ahead and do something like that. So I'm personally okay that Dan Hardy went and did that. Now, if it was somebody, again, like one of us that was going over the cage after Herb Dean, we probably should, get a smack over the head for it.
Yeah. Like, I agree with you to a certain extent, but, the way I saw it was I agree with, what Dan Hardy said. Like, I totally get, what he's saying, and I thought, use your time as, a broadcaster, say that. I thought it was, a little, almost, inappropriate, I guess, the fact that he waited for Herb Dean to come out and start yelling at him. I just didn't think that was necessary. And just from watching how some of the media covered it too, I felt almost that became the talking point. So the whole reason why we're having this argument is because the fight should have been stopped early. I felt that almost got a little masked just because of the way he did it. Where at that point I'm it almost seems I don't know, just too much. I think he went slightly too far. I thought I thought he could have said it on the broadcast. Listening to that broadcast, you could obviously hear he was upset with it. He made his point. And I guess is kind of combat with what you said, but Joe Rogan, obviously he's never been in the cage, but we've seen him do this a lot of times too, where he'll say a terrible stoppage, gets the point off, everyone knows the ref made a mistake, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, being a referee is almost a thankless job because we've seen Herb Dean go out there time and time again and do a fantastic job. And it's unfortunate, whenever it's always the bad stuff that people always remember. But yeah, no, it doesn't take a rocket scientist a lot of times to figure out when's a good stoppage, when's a bad stoppage. In Herb's defense on this one, and I'm not taking sides on it because I do get both sides of it, but so when the shot landed, I did think that he moved in a fairly, quick way because the guy when he hit, his head was kind of still up, and it appeared that I couldn't physically see what his eyeballs were like, but it seemed like his eyes were at least open. Now they could have been rolled back. I'm not really sure, but I mean, he only threw another shot or two before he jumped in there. So again, I see both sides of it, but the biggest thing I think is pretty much the use of the Dan Hardy probably didn't have to be waiting for him to get out of the octagon to yell at him or anything like that. But again, being a referee is a thankless job, and especially with somebody like Herb, that's one of the best in the business. I mean, can we cut him some slack just one time? I mean, the guy that no one's raising his hand when he does it right, which is almost always.
Yeah. Well, I feel a lot of people have been kind of changed in their opinion on Herb Dean too. I feel more recently, maybe some of the things that he's been doing is a little more questionable. So I think when people saw this, it was almost just everyone was kind of I felt everyone was just this was a chance to kind of jump on that and bring that to light too. I thought I saw a lot of people kind of doing that where they weren't just talking about this, but they were talking about a lot of different things that Herb Dean has done, especially more recently.
Yeah, no, it does seem that way too with him, but hey, he's the guy that's always wanting to go out there. It's rare to see a UFC event no matter where it's at, overseas, in the States, East Coast, West Coast, Central. I mean, Herb's always there for the UFC. So, I mean, got to look at it that way too because we see, I love Dan Miragliotta. I think he's probably if he's not, obviously tied with Herb Dean as the best in the sport, he's a very close second. But we don't always see, Big Dan going out there every single weekend like Herb does. So, I mean, again, you got to look at it from that perspective too. It's, again, I don't think there's really a right or wrong thing on this here. Both sides have valid points on everything. It's an unfortunate situation, but it is how it is.
Whenever I think of Dan Mergliotta, I think of that Chikongo Pat Barry fight. Because that was like insane. Like Chikongo was like against the cage the whole time, was like feet were coming out from under him, and then he just lands that hook and puts Pat Barry out cold. And fun fact too about Dan Mergliotta, actually, I wrestled his son in high school.
No kidding. Did you really?
Yeah.
I met Dan at the first event I ever covered, was actually a Bellator event, and I went up to him and spoke to him. He was a great guy. He was a really nice guy. And obviously, you wrestled his son. Did you beat his son? Did you win?
I mean, I don't want to brag, but yes, I did.
You did. Well, I hope he was nice to you after you just out wrestled his son.
Yeah. Well, actually, at that time, Kurt Pellegrino was my wrestling coach, so they kind of had like a little fun thing going that whole day.
That's hilarious. And how about Kurt, too? We'll give him a shout-out, too. He's a rock star, isn't he? He's awesome. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, Kurt's a good guy. But just moving on, too. I mean, we're going to go back into UFC, but before we do, I want to talk about this Lance Palmer thing because I felt like this was maybe even going a little bit under the radar, too, as far as just things that people were talking about. And I get that with, like, when you have a Bellator and UFC things over the weekend, too, like those kind of Trump things, but with Lance, like I know there was a thing with like his dad. His dad maybe I think they were saying there was allegedly like some racist comments on the Instagram, but then PFL kind of wanted I think they were asking Lance Palmer to have his dad take him down. From what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know Lance Palmer kind of asked to be released, and I mean that's obviously the big story here because I think he's one of two guys to ever win back-to-back PFL. The tournaments, it's kind of crazy to me. It's like, how much what would losing Lance Palmer, I guess, mean for PFL?
Yeah, that's a huge loss, especially like when you look at PFL too. I mean, first let's look at the sport in general. It's pretty much where I'm going with this. You look at the UFC is number one. Like, there's people that actually refer to the sport of mixed martial arts as the UFC. It drives me insane. Like, you see people at a bar like, I love UFC. UFC is a great sport. I love watching UFC. UFC, great sport. Like, it's not the sport, it's an organization. Yeah. But, so anyway, little rant there. But when you look at the sport of mixed martial arts, you have the UFC, you have Bellator, and then I'm assuming PFL is probably in the third spot. But you know what I mean? They're looking up to those guys. When you have somebody like Lance Palmer, who, four-time All-American at Ohio State, has a big following. Before we came on air here, me and you were talking about it. You said when you were at a PFL fight where the fans were chanting for him, chanting for his dad. When you have somebody, when you're an organization that has somebody like that, the eyeballs are on, that's going to be a huge blow to you. You don't want to lose your star. And it seems like Palmer seems to be going in that direction anyway. You know what I mean? It seems like the bridge has been burnt there, and that's going to be a huge loss for PFL. I mean, luckily for PFL, at least they have Rory McDonald coming in on the back end of that. But still, you don't want to lose. When you have a star like him, or even like they have Kayla Harrison as well, like when you have stars like that people are going out there and wanting to watch, you cannot win, especially when you're in that slot, when you're in that third position slot. If you're trying to compete to build your way up, I know it's hard to say you're probably not going to reach the UFC, but still, when you're in that position, whatever you have going for you, don't want to lose. You only want to build and get better.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, I don't think anybody ever thinks like they'll compete, like they'll be at the same level as the UFC. But like you said, like they got to hold on to these guys that are, and we saw it with like Bellator too. Even like in the earlier days too, they were able to like keep a guy like Michael Chandler and things like that. They also struggled to keep other guys too, like Eddie Alvarez too, and things like that. But yeah, no, I think that's I think it's a massive blow. I mean, when I think of PFL, I mean, I also think of Nate Schultz, I guess, because I think he won it twice too as a lightweight. But even then, it's like you compare Schultz to Palmer. I mean, Palmer's definitely the bigger name, and also too, he was like Team Alpha Male guy. I mean, like he was always like I think he even might have been that. I always thought this video was like when it was like teach me how to Dougie. I don't know. Maybe Palmer wasn't that. Maybe it was Joseph Benavidez and Uriah Faber. Who was the other one? Chad Mendez maybe, but I don't know. I always thought of Team Alpha Male like as one, and like Palmer was always one of those guys that like even before he was in PFL too. Like I knew he was a guy coming up just because you associate with those guys, especially like back then too. It's like Chad Mendez was top of the division, Benavidez, Faber. So I mean, Team Alpha Male I feel like has maybe sizzled down a little bit, but Palmer's one of those guys that I just always held in a high regard. So I think when you lose a guy like that. Or the guy, I mean, he's not gone yet. Like, I want to make that clear. But it seems like it's headed that direction.
Yeah, I think that PFL, whatever problems they have, they need to sit down and get this thing worked out, because it's one of those things like, so if the UFC has a problem with somebody, they're like, well, I'm going to leave the UFC. Well, like, fine, go ahead. We have we have a whole different roster. And then that's usually when your Bellators and PFL come into play, where they kind of scoop up the guys that are leaving the UFC in free, or one championship now as well, where they're scooping up these guys in free agency. So now when you're one of these guys, like I said before, like you can, because guess what? If Lance Palmer leaves, someone's going to sign him. The UFC, like stars like that, they would gladly sign him. Bellator, for sure. They're going to throw money.
Bellator would jump all over that, yeah.
Oh, God, because one's spending money on guys, too, that have big names in free agency. He's not going to be a free agent for long if you let him go. So I think it's great that, or I should say that it would be a great thing to do if these guys sit down and come to an agreement. Because especially on a topic like this, I get PFL's, point of view where, you're the organization. You don't want to look at your racist organization with somebody coming out and making now, again, the thing is, we can't even see these comments because apparently his father's Instagram is private. But still, as an organization, I would see why you're upset about something like that. And I 100% get that. But at the same time, and I'm not, condoning racism in any way, shape, or fashion. But, being that, you're in this country that promotes freedom of speech and everything like that, you kind of have these clash of heads. And I think Lance said it best. My father doesn't fight for the promotion. What are you? I'm not the one that's saying it. I work for you, and I'm not saying it. So why are you mad at what somebody? Exactly. And I think that you have to sit down and rationalize it that way. There's no reason for these guys to be, or for PFL and him to be going back and forth over something that his father does. You know what I mean? It's not him that's out there, making the black eye for himself.
Yeah. No, you went right into my point too. I was thinking the same thing. I was going to say, I was like, it's not something it is kind of out. I thought he said it good too. It is out of his control. He can't control what his father does. So why should that be an issue with the promotion? But it is what it is. But moving on, more controversy we're rolling into here now. Mike Perry, obviously, he's been in the news. Recently, just on his own, obviously everyone was talking about the Mickey Gall fight and how his girlfriend cornered him, but then after that, it was 2 weeks after in Texas, he punched a guy at a restaurant, and then and now there's this new thing kind of opens up too, and I was kind of shocked when I saw this because I saw that his ex-wife had posted this picture of them, but then kind of had this thing that she didn't want to be silent anymore. And I think there is a lot of, and I want to be careful when we talk about this because I think there are some, everything is, I guess, it's alleged at this point because there is no exact proof of anything. We know what Perry's done in the past, but we already know, the first thing that really popped in my mind after this was when he had punched the guy at the restaurant. The UFC said, listen, we don't want him fighting again until we get this figured out. So now you have his ex-wife saying this. Now I'm in my head, I'm well, when are we going to see Mike Perry again? And what is next for Mike Perry?
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, let's, whenever I say this, I just want to be clear that I'm not a supporter of domestic violence. I think it's absolutely wrong. And I don't think that any man should ever treat a woman that way. And the things that she was saying too, I don't know if anyone saw the story, but I'll just briefly, give a little bit of a clarification. She was saying this was not a physical thing. Now, first, you should never lay your hands on anybody ever. But she's saying this was mental, and mental abuse is a real thing too. You look at people if you and your spouse or even whoever it is, if you're having this clash of heads and you're arguing, you're saying hurtful and rude things, it ruins your psyche. And mental strength is, just as important as anything else. So I just want to make that clear that I don't condone any of that. And I don't think anyone should ever be doing that. And I'm not saying that Mike Perry, that he did that, but I'm just want to be clear that there's two sides to this thing. So if we take what she's saying at face value, Mike Perry should not, act that way and treat people that way. And he probably would have a problem. But unfortunately, when you look at this, and again, this is why I'm glad, right? When I talked about before, we're learning from my news director and sports director from the old school styles of journalism. A lot of times with media nowadays, this is a problem where we don't, I want to say that media is being unfair, but we jumped the gun too quick and everything's about getting clicks and everything along those types of lines. When you look at a story like this, now, unfortunately, Mike Perry, again, is in a situation where he's a celebrity. So these types of things are going to get leaked out and everything else. I get that. But regardless, you're looking at where she's making these alleged allegations. He hasn't said anything, but I guarantee you he would deny. If we asked Mike Perry, right, if he was here right now, we asked him, he's going to deny. And I would guarantee that. I'd be like, yes, I said those hurtful things to her. So, and then you have a judge that ruled in his favor with the PFA, saying that there's no reason for one. So, you know, I think when you look at that, you have to be fair to Mike Perry, and I really don't think we should be jumping down his throat at the moment with any of that. And I know I see you nodding. Do you want to say something along this before I start diving more into Mike Perry? I have a lot to talk about with Mike Perry. I do have one other point I want to get to with that whole video, but I'll let you. Do you agree what I'm saying? Or do you have anything you want to add to like the points I just made?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of it, but like my thing is like it's just like what happens to him almost from here, because it's like I almost feel like the UFC was already had him on a short leash with like the whole thing with the punch, and like, you know, they're like, oh, we don't know when we're gonna have him again, and then it's like now this, like whether the allegations, whether it's true or not, like just from his past actions, like like you said, like people are going, I think, to associate like bad things when they think of Mike Perry. Just because it's like, you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf type of thing. So it's like, you know, maybe he didn't do these things. And another thing too is like, it's kind of crazy because this post literally came right after he was like finally training with Yoel Romero. He had posted a picture. And then I know you also said there was another post that was on there. I'll let you share that.
Yeah. So he just posted that photo that he's going to be a father now. So first off, number one, let's just talk about that for a second. He's going to be welcoming a child into this world. Let allegations aside, whether he did those or not, that the video of him punching somebody is not that was not okay. The way how he acted inside that restaurant, and you know, that I really think that he might need some type of help. God bless him. You know, that doesn't mean anything bad, but there's something off. So I guess let's dive into this video. I know you asked, where do we see Mike Perry going from here? And I think we'll start with this video here. So the way he acted, people don't act that way when you go out in public. I mean, I don't know, like, where we want. I've been this whole entire time that we've been doing this, I've been trying to, like, look at both sides, be objective to everything. But this is something, he's wrong here. Like, that was bad. Very, very bad. And I think that the UFC handled it the right way. Like, he's not fighting again until he gets counseling. Now, again, this thing just happened. Like, this is a fresh wound. I don't even know when the counseling's even starting. If it started, he could be going through this right now, but I think that the UFC forcing him to go to counseling is the right move. And I think the ball's now in Perry's court. He has the opportunity now to go do this counseling, to get his head straightened out, and to be a better person, to be a better human being, and say, hey, I wasn't perfect. I was, you know, acting in ways that people shouldn't act, and I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to rise above it. And I hope that's the route that he decides to go on. He's a talented fighter. He's a hell of a fighter. He's a lot of fun. He's funny, you know, a fan favorite. And I think the UFC made the right call by forcing him to go to counseling. And I hope this counseling works, because Mike Perry's now in a situation where he's going to be welcoming a child into the world. And I want to see him be a great father and be a great role model. And hopefully his little boy, because he announced he was having a boy, I hope his boy's going to follow in his footsteps and be just as entertaining as a fighter and entertain all of us just like his father did.
Yeah. Now, I didn't see enough, so I'll ask you. I'm not sure if you have the answer either. But has he said anything as far as like on her allegations? Anything? Has he commented at all? I find it hard that Mike Perry is like being quiet about something.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't seen anything yet. And again, the timing of all this is just crazy, because I believe, if I have my timeline correct here, and I'm pretty sure I do, she made the statement, I believe it was 2 days ago, and then it was yesterday or sometime last night that he announced that he was going to be a father. So I think when he's getting ready to do his whole gender reveal thing, may have been on the forefront of his mind over these alleged allegations. So I know, like you said, you would think he has something to say, but I don't know if counseling has started yet either. I would imagine if he's going through counseling to fix himself, that they would probably advise him. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I know, but I would imagine that somebody in their situation, like, you know what, you're becoming a better person. Let's not worry about this right now. That can get taken care of on its own. Whatever legal things that go on there, but maybe you should just not, you know, touch that one with a 10-foot pole for the time being.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like someone who's advised too often or takes other people's advice.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why the UFC wanted to go into counseling. I mean, even before this whole entire thing with him punching people in the face, that, like, look at that interview with Darren Till, where he was talking.
Yeah.
I mean, he was using gay slurs and saying a lot of
Talking
negative
about
things.
mom and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one of those things where, just look at the world around us today. First off, number one, you should be making those types of comments anyway. It's one thing too, like, okay, I'm out at a bar with my guy friends and we're fooling around and, somebody's being an asshole and videotapes me, when I was hanging out with my friends. Like, I feel bad for those types of people. Not condoning that you should be acting that way anyway, but still, like, when you're somebody in their situation like that, especially when you're going to do an interview, you can't say stuff like that. It's the world that we live in now, and there's really like no excuse for. I mean, I almost want to give him credit for saying that he's being himself, but like, I mean, come on, you have to be wise in that. You have to make smart decisions, and obviously, Mike Perry the last couple of months has been nothing but one bad decision after another. And again, I hope this counseling works because he's starting to, I want to say, spiral out of control, but it's getting pretty bad with Mike Perry.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we're running pretty deep here, I guess, but there are a couple things. Well, maybe we'll try to make these like speed rounds. But Kazmat Chimaev, I obviously he stole a lot. I thought a lot of the shine, not just from Saturday night, but really Fight Island in general. I thought one of the big talking points. But now he's already saying, and we saw Dana White's obviously behind this guy. He had talked to ESPN and said that he's going to grant him that fight in August. So, I mean, we could be seeing Chimaev 3 times in a month span. But are they pushing a guy like this too fast?
Yes and no, and I'll try to be quick with this. I think the UFC, I think, has done an overall fairly good job of, not rushing people too far into things. Like, look at Sean O'Malley. People probably want to make a case for Sean O'Malley right now. They can fight for a UFC World Championship, and he's not even, he's probably, I bet you, about 2-3 fights away from that. So I think the UFC is not rushing him as far as, like, they're not giving him a ranked opponent right just yet. But as far as, like, fighting this many times in a row, I mean, that's brutal. I think he hasn't been cutting weight for all of it, but still, like, your body can only take so much. I know he's getting in and out of there fast, but, at somewhere I think they might want to pump the brakes on that and not burn this kid out.
Yeah, I think they are pushing him a little like too fast too, because like I get what you're saying with the kind of the Sean O'Malley thing, but this is a little different because I like the thing that stood to me in this interview was he was like Dana White. I think Dana White brought it up too. He was just like, oh, like, is this guy ready for Kamaru Usman? He's like, I don't know, maybe. And like I was like, if I'm Kamaru Usman and like I see the president of the UFC saying that this guy with 2 fights, and like I know obviously he's not going to fight Kamaru Usman. I get that. But the fact that you're even putting him in that conversation with a guy like Kamaru Usman, like I like if I'm Kamaru Usman, I'd be like kind of offended. Just I'd be like, this guy like came in, because if you look at Chimaev too, and that's why I think they might be rushing him a little bit. He hasn't fought like a welterweight yet. He fought a middleweight in John Phillips, and Reese McKee. He's actually considered like a natural lightweight, so he hasn't really even fought anyone like naturally in his division yet.
Yeah, no, I agree on all that. He's definitely nowhere near ready for any of those guys. And like I said, the UFC is usually pretty smart with doing all this. I know Dana White said that, and maybe he's kicking himself in the ass for saying it. I'm not really sure, but that's the big thing here is you don't rush him into something that's going to be too big for him. Because we've seen Bellator make that mistake before, like with Aaron Pico and stuff, where you've gotten guys that you jumped ahead of yourselves a little bit. The guy's new into the organization. He's making a great splash. If you're going to let him fight again in August, great. Let him fight again in August. If he is to be victorious there, like, pump the brakes back a little bit. Let him wait until, I don't know, maybe October, November. Give him a step up. Then he wins that one. He wants to get back in there in 2 or 3 months. Give him another step up. But yeah, I think they have to kind of have like a blueprint laid out for him, and I hope that they have one. Yeah.
Like I think a guy like maybe like right outside that top 15, or maybe like that top 15, 14 spot, like that would make sense to me. Like that I could see, especially like, because let's be honest too, like obviously he has the 2 wins, but like there's a lot of hype around him. So I do get that. So I feel like he maybe could jump the line a little bit just because of that. But I like I said, like I feel like somebody maybe in that right outside top 15, maybe top 15, top 14, that I'd be okay with. Like I think that makes sense.
I was going to say, it depends how far you want to go. It's like if you give him somebody right outside, let's use, Mickey Gall will use as an example. Mickey's a tough night out, and you have somebody like him who wants to go out and wrestle the whole time. Well, Mickey could go out and Mickey will welcome that. Hey, you want to clinch with me? Bring it on. We'll do it. And you might see right there that he might be biting off way more than he can chew. You know, you might be able to, or maybe he goes through Mickey and rips right through him. But again, do we want to push him in that direction quick? Do we want to give him let him get another win or two under his belt, then say, okay, we'll give you somebody outside of the top 15, then you win that one, we'll give you a ranked opponent, maybe have like something where maybe you have 5 fights that if he goes in the next 5, he fights for a belt or something like that. But I don't know if you want to give him somebody even that in that situation just quite yet. Maybe let him get another win or two and then start giving him the ranked or just about ranked guys there.
Yeah, because there's 2 things that the guys he fought both had in common. Their takedown defense, isn't anything outstanding. So, and we saw he obviously likes to kind of just do that, almost like a lot of people are comparing him to Khabib, just with that kind of that control that he has from the top position. But moving on to the final thing here too, and a good segue because I just mentioned Khabib, but I actually didn't do that on purpose either. But Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje. I mean, I think everyone knew that was going to be the fight. I was a little shocked that it was in October, just with everything that's going on with Khabib. Obviously, his father, condolences to that. But were you surprised by like October?
Very surprised. I really was. Like you said, first off, condolences to Khabib and his family there. But yeah, the fight was supposed to originally be in September, and then with his father passing, Dana White was going to give him as much time as he needed, and obviously you can't blame him. That's a tragic loss for anybody. So yeah, the fact that it's coming around in October is definitely surprising. But I mean, what a fun match! I'm not going to complain about the match, but I'm really looking forward to that. How about you?
This is in no way a complaint. Like, I love the fight. I want to see it. I mean, I'm kind of like jumping on the bandwagon of a lot of people kind of saying that. Like, I mean, I think Gaethje's like just his style and everything. Like, I think he's got a shot. Like, it's definitely intriguing. It's a fight I want to see. I just thought it was like super soon. Like, I just wasn't like when I saw that. I just like wasn't expecting. Like when I saw the Israel Adesanya Paulo Costa fight, I was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Like I figured that was coming soon. When I saw this, I was like, oh my God. Like I couldn't believe that it was happening that quick. And I mean, and if that's the way that he needs to grieve and things like that, then by all means, like he obviously knows what's best for him. But I just was like shocked by the whole thing. And also I saw that he's going to corner his cousin before that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about the styles thing too. I'm going to get into that. I know we're coming up close to an hour here. I know we were saying we're going to keep around 45 minutes. We're having fun. We're having fun. We can't stop now. So, I mean, again, Khabib, I'm assuming Khabib's not rushing into things. I think Khabib's always been very smart. I mean, for God's sake, when his teammates were suspended, he was like, oh, I'm not going to fight until my teammates aren't suspended. So I'll give him Khabib. So far, he's always shown that he's very tough mentally and that he seems that he does things on the right track. I mean, the guy doesn't even drink alcohol either. So, I mean, we'll take him at that face value. That'll be ready for October. And I'm expecting to see Khabib come in there. And I'm going to hold Khabib to the standard of him being the undefeated champion that he is. And he's going to come in there ready to go. But now, on the styles, though, if I can real quick. Everyone's on this bandwagon that this is going to be a big, a bit of a clash of styles. Khabib's toughest fight today, which I think it can be. There's definitely, I can see where people make this argument. But the only thing is, with Justin Gaethje, I know he has the wrestling background. He was a Division I All-American, but we haven't seen him use his wrestling yet. Mm-hmm. Even as far as people say, like, oh, well, he's the good wrestling defense. Who has he really fought that has this dominant wrestling background that he's fought? Who's the best wrestlers that he fought in the UFC so far? Is it Eddie Alvarez? Maybe who did? I don't think he even went to it. You know what I mean? But Poirier wasn't Poirier. You know what I mean? Ferguson doesn't use his wrestling at all. That was a stand-up affair. So I'm a little bit leery on nothing away from Justin Gaethje. I can see Justin Gaethje going in there and being this guy. I look at Poirier's performance against Khabib. When he was throwing at Khabib, he had Khabib on retreat. He almost locked in that guillotine choke as well. So, it is possible, but I haven't seen any sort of signs that makes me want to say, you know what? He's not going to get ragdolled by Khabib. He's the guy that's not going to get ragdolled. So until I see that, again, it's going to happen, I'm sure, at some point. Like, this is the reason why I think that Tony Ferguson makes the best matchup with Khabib, just because of his jiu-jitsu background off of his back. But again, that's my take on it. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but I just haven't seen it enough that makes me want to just come right out. Especially now, as the fight gets closer, we might break this down a little bit more, maybe want to jump towards something like that. But right now, first initial reaction, I haven't seen it enough to make me want to jump and say, yes, this is it. You want to see Khabib lose? Tune in. he's losing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, and I agree with that. Like, I like the style, but like if I was a betting man, I'd be putting my money on Khabib, just because I don't know. Like, I just don't know. Like, is there a weakness in Khabib's game? That's the crazy thing about Khabib is like we haven't seen too much negative like coming from his fights, which I like. If you were preparing for a guy like that, I really don't know where to begin.
Yeah, and well, first to Justin Gaethje said like when he does fight Khabib, he want to have the right training camp for him. So I imagine, especially doing he's trains out in Colorado with Trevor Whitman, who's a great coach too. So I imagine he's going to have wrestlers in there on a day in day out basis. I wouldn't even be surprised. I know Usman's working out there now. If Usman comes in and helps him out, so he's going to be trained and he's going to go out there and put his best foot forward. But still, there hasn't been anybody that's made us say, "Oh, yep, Khabib's time's coming. Khabib's time's you know what I mean?" Like, it almost gets to that John Jones type of effect where, like, you just, whenever they fight, all right, well, Jones is good. We have to watch in case he loses, but Jones is going to win. Yeah. But Jones at least has had a couple close matchups. Now, Khabib's just been steamrolling everybody. Like, we're not even at any point where we could say, yep, he's going down.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people too, because I think if it was before this Tony Ferguson fight, obviously people have a lot of opinion. But like Gaethje too was just like, and that was an incredible performance too, because the power he was throwing in those later rounds was just like insane. Like you could, and then maybe that, like I don't know if it either too, because it was like one of those first like 14 cards too. So for all of us, it was like the first time you could actually like see some of just hear some of those shots that like we never heard before. But like I just remember watching that, and I'm just like, this is like, it was like unimaginable. Like I just remember like looking out. I think I was watching with my dad, and I was like, I don't think I've seen anyone like throw with that much power like in this late. And that was a dog fight too. It wasn't like they were just like coasting, and then in the end he like poured it on.
Yeah, well, I think you have to give credit to Gaethje too, because he's really evolved as a fighter since joining the UFC. Because when he first came in, he was just this I'm going to go out there, all gas, no break, and go at it. And you saw with Eddie Alvarez, even though he was hurt, he was still able to absorb his shots and go the distance with them. I think he finished them off at some point in there. Same thing with Dustin Poirier, I believe it was with the fourth round, the same thing though. But he was all gas, no break. Since then, he's been fighting calm, patient, calculated. And when he fights like that, oh my God, is he dangerous. The way he ripped through Cowboy, the way he just went through Tony Ferguson. When he fights calm and collected like he's a whole different fighter. And you got to give the credit to Justin Gaethje there for evolving the way how he's evolved.
Yeah, I think a lot of that falls on like Trevor Whitman too, because we even saw in that last fight, like he had to keep reminding, he's like, calm down, relax. Like we've seen like this happen before, where you're up and then you get finished, that kind of thing. So I think Whitman's like almost like a perfect match for him.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it's again, I'm looking forward to this matchup, and I think that Gaethje will come in there prepared, being that he is with Trevor Whitman and everything else. I mean, Whitman's done a great job with a lot of fighters throughout his career as a coach, and I imagine Gaethje's gonna be no different. Now he's obviously the interim champ, and a lot of people are picking him to beat Khabib. So I guess time's gonna tell. I'm looking forward to it, and again, it's going to be a fun couple of months for us coming up. We have a lot of great fights coming up, including the heavyweight fight with Stipe and DC coming up soon too. Looking forward to that one. So we have a lot of fights that are bringing smiles to a lot of our faces. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned about how far Gaethje's come too, because I actually covered Gaethje. I think it was like 2013 or something. It was Arlovsky. Who did he fight? Arlovsky, Anthony Johnson. World Series of Fighting, and I remember being in the back. I think Gaethje won. He beat Cavalcante. I think it was like a doctor stoppage. Well, let me look it up real quick. Oh, doctor stoppage first round. And like that, I remember it was so crazy because we were in the back and like nobody was talking to Gaethje. He was kind of just like sitting there like by himself, just like waiting for people to talk to him. So I was like, I'll talk to him. He's like an up and coming guy. And at that point, I think he moved to 8-0 that night. So, but that was just kind of crazy too, to kind of see him where he is now.
Yeah, he definitely has come a long way. And, I also, one other thing too with Justin Gaethje, kind of getting off and forget, just him as a fighter for a second. But I think a lot of test of just how he's grown and evolved has a lot to do with his parents too. You saw after his last fight and his win over Tony Ferguson, he gave the big credit to his parents. And it's funny when he did that though, because I knew he was a family man. Now I also covered Gaethje one time, and when he knocked out Edson Barbosa in Philly with the news station, I was credentialed to that event, and I went there, and obviously he won. Got to interview him in the post fight and whatnot. But this past summer, when I was out there in Vegas for the John Jones card that we talked about at the beginning, one of the things that me and my father did was, at the end of the day, all of us are fans, so I treated myself. Me and my dad went to the UFC, the Fan Fest they put on every year for International Fight Week. So you get to go and you get to meet all the fighters in whatever time slot that it's in. And Justin Gaethje was one of them, and he was like, so you guys are father and son. It's very nice seeing you guys hang out. I brought my parents out here with me while I'm on vacation, so it's nice that he has this great relationship with his parents. So being that he's a family man like that, and came from a great household, I think has a big testament to do with how he's grown as a fighter as well.
Yeah. No, yeah, one of the nice guys of the sport for sure. That's pretty much it, John. We obviously went a little over, but like you said, we were having fun there. Anything you'd like to say before we kind of close up shop here?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to working with you over the the time here at MyMMANews. Hopefully, we get to do this again. This was a lot of fun, and
sure.
Like I said before, hopefully in a couple of years, the sport will be so mainstream that will be one of the bigger guys, the full-time guys at every event, credentialed, flying around the world. It'll be a lot of fun. And also too, just before I head out, if anyone's watching, they want to give me a follow on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, just look me up, John Eric Poli. I would point to it over here, but I think it might be a little blurred out on the screen there, but it's on there at John Eric Poli. Give me a follow. And Connor, thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, I'm going to follow suit there, too. If you guys want to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, it's Deep Water MMA Podcast, and our Twitter is at MMA_deep. And then my personal Twitter is just at CNorthrup732. But, once again, John, thanks for joining us. A lot of MMA action this week. Like I said, Invicta Thursday, the last of 4 LFA cards on Friday. And then UFC continues. I thought maybe we'd get a break because we got a break between the Apex and the Fight Island cards, but no break here. They keep kind of pouring it on us here. But like you said, they're taking advantage of just now I guess they're not one of the only sports in towns, but maybe they're just trying to keep those keep the fish on the hook. Kind of saying, I guess. But anyways, thanks for joining us, John. Thanks for everyone who's watching live and also the recording. We appreciate it every week. Lucas will be back next week for those wondering. And we'll see you guys. Enjoy the fights this weekend.